Welcome to the Political Beast podcast for Wednesday, January 11th. We're doing a Political Beast redo or revisit for the first time ever with perhaps my favorite interviewee of my short journalistic career, this Sheriff Tony Estrada, someone that I depend on for input and for insight and for just all-around education, especially when it comes to issues like illegal immigration. Sheriff Estrada, where are you coming to us from right now?
I'm responding from Nogales, Arizona, the county of Santa Cruz, right down here in Arizona, right along the border with Mexico.
Well, since the last time that we talked, not much has changed at all. The sky is still blue, and the earth is still firm under my feet when I step outside, and I really can't think of any developments that matter to Santa Cruz County or the rest of the world since we've talked last. Can you?
Well, obviously, with the, and I think we might have talked after President-elect Trump, or maybe before, but obviously with his election, there's a lot of anxiety among people, not only here along the border, but I would expect across the nation and even across the world. There's so many unknowns, so many unpredictables, and for the Hispanic community, at least here along the border, on both sides of the border, a major concern about some of the promises that he made about NAFTA and about charging and bringing some of the factories back to the United States, which will obviously be an unemployment problem for Mexico and Sonora as well. There's a lot of issues concerning that, and the deportation.
Well, in our conversation leading up to this podcast for the Political Beast, you and I didn't actually discuss the economic issues. You're of Hispanic ethnicity, but you're not a Mexican. You're an American. So
right.
What in the world does NAFTA? And this is not me attempting to argue with you. This is actually, I'm shocked that you brought that up. What in the world does NAFTA and Trump's economic position, what does that have to do with Santa Cruz County other than to potentially benefit your constituents?
Well, what happens with NAFTA, it's a major corridor here for products that are crossing the border both ways. And it's going to impact on that. You have the Ford factory up in Hermosillo. You have the Maquiladora, the twin plant factories here in Nogales, Sonora, and in Sonora itself. So that's going to have an impact on those people if and when there are some major changes to that agreement. So it's going to impact the people here along the border. Obviously, we depend on the Arizona side. We depend on the Mexican consumer. And if the Mexican consumer doesn't have a job, obviously it's going to impact on it. So, yes, it will have a definite impact if NAFTA is somehow changed in any way that will impact, the economy.
All right. Well, we're going to come back to Donald Trump and some of his decisions that he's made since he got elected.
Right.
But let's touch on something a little more up to date than the Trump election. That's President Obama's farewell address last night. I know that you weren't able to listen to the entire speech, but that you've gotten up to speed prior to us having this interview. What did he say that touched you? What did he say that you disagreed with? And then just generally, what are your thoughts on the legacy that President Obama is going to leave? For good, for bad, for ineffective, for effective? I'm just going to let you take
Well,
all of that. Open-ended
yeah,
question.
yeah, I think overall effective. It's unfortunate that he found so much obstruction in his presidency, but he was, as far as I'm concerned, did accomplish some major things. Among them, DACA. Recognizing some of the young people that are actually victims, to allow them to continue here and study and hopefully be part of this great nation. That was one. Obviously, the Obamacare was something that helped a lot of people, millions of people, whether that had to be reconstructed or changed in some way. Well, that's possible, But I think it was a tremendous move to include people, especially with people with illnesses, that already had that were never going to be covered by anybody. So, and obviously leaving the children up until 26 years to be covered under their parents' policy.
Well,
So,
Sheriff, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you because as an elected official, you are also an employer. And I know it's not you technically, but it's Santa Cruz County. But as the county's as the sheriff's office head, I'm going to call you an employer, just for sake of brevity. As
right.
an employer, how have your sheriff's department employees been affected by Obamacare?
Okay. Right now, I do not believe that they have been affected because the county provides for health insurance that the employee pays for, and that has been here forever. So it's not impacting on them.
So premiums have not gone up in Santa Cruz County.
No, they normally do with inflation and things of that nature, and depending on the claims and things of that nature, but nothing that's drastic. I think our employees are happy with the plan that they have. But it has not impacted on them at all. I think the impact is mostly the people that are not in the public sector; they're on the private sector.
Going back to a more general question about Obama, I want to put, before we get back to him, I want to put your opinion sort of on the line and in perspective here. You're 70 years old, is that right?
73.
73. And we're gonna
go down another year since we talked the last time.
And we're gonna come back to that too, so keep making note of it. But you're 73 years old.
Right.
The width of your life experience is wider than most of our listeners. So put into perspective, in your lifetime, and you don't cheat and go back to a president that you really don't remember. Okay, we're talking about presidents that you remember living underneath their administration. Who is the greatest president that we've had?
Obviously, in my generation, obviously, because I would have experienced it. I would think that among them, probably at the top would probably be John F. Kennedy.
Why?
Well, I think he was young. He brought a lot of new ideas. He provided for a lot of hope for the American people. He was charismatic. He was very special in a lot of ways, and he was able to convince and accomplish a lot of things in the short time that he was there.
Where were you? Where were you when you found out that President Kennedy had been shot?
I think I was probably. I think he was shot in about 62, 64. Do you remember the year?
Oh yeah.
If I was not
it was
in
63.
school at that time, 63.
Yeah, I think it was 63.
So I was in the private sector. I was working already. I graduated in 62. And if it was 63, then it would have been.
And it may have been 62, but it was in right. That it was in there somewhere close. Yeah.
I was a teenager probably at that time.
All right, so again, without going through the list of presidents, Where does Obama fall? Let's do a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being ineffective and bad for America, 10 being perfect. Where would you go?
I would say he would be like an 8. He would be like an 8. I mean, I don't think there's a 10 yet.
Well, for those 2 missing points to make him perfect, give me a couple of instances where you were disappointed with the decision that the president made.
Well, I really am not disappointed. I think he mostly attempted or accomplished a lot of things that I would have liked to have seen. You know, one of my interests down here obviously is the relationships that we have with Mexico. You know, definitely it's a major issue that we have, a major concern, a major part of our lives. And I think he worked well with Mexico while he was there, and I'm kind of looking forward to hopefully something similar under the new administration.
So you would have, you agree with me, and I'll normally I just conduct interviews, but I am going to forcefully give an opinion here. You agree with me that this pivot to Russia, this pivot to Asia, this pivot to China, all these pivots to all these other places, all we have to do is turn south. We don't have to pivot. We don't have to move. We don't have to build bridges or span or leap tall buildings. All we have to do is hold out our hand and look south. I mean, and that's, to me, that's my biggest disappointment with President Obama, is this. You say, yes, he had good relations with Mexico. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But why are we not investing? We're talking about trying to take jobs away from Mexico because we want them for ourselves. Why are we not investing in Mexico? People don't come to this country because they want to leave their home.
Right. Definitely. I agree with you. And I have always said for years, I have said that the United States took its eye off of Mexico for too long. They did. You have a friendly nation, and they said, well, let's leave them alone. Let's let them do their thing. And before they realized, the cartels started taking over. Corruption got to be really big time, and now it's a problem.
Yeah,
It's definitely a problem. There was no investment in Mexico. There has been, obviously, because of the NAFTA and some other programs. There has been some investment that has helped Mexico and the labor up there. So that's one of the things.
Yeah, it's so. What you said is so prescient about taking away jobs from Mexico and how that's going to hurt, especially our border communities. I heard a report on, I think it was on Marketplace on National Public Radio last night, talk about this lady who, she's an American. She's a Mexican citizen, but she has a visa to travel, back and forth.
Right.
And every day, she drives across the border in Brownsville, into Brownsville, Texas, and she goes to the Krispy Kreme, and she buys at full retail. Like, she goes in just like any other customer, and she buys dozens of Krispy Kreme donuts. Then they sell for about $4 a dozen, something like that,
right.
in Brownsville. And she drives across the border into Mexico, and she parks her truck outside of a workout facility there in Matamoros, and sells the boxes of donuts for $8 a piece. And when we think of taking away Mexican jobs, we're talking about taking jobs away from a country that loves us, that respects us, that anything that has to do with American, anytime a restaurant is opened in Mexico City that's an American franchise, is immediately successful. Because Mexican people want what we make. They want what we sell. They want what we wear. They want what we eat. And just the concept that we could ignore or attempt to depreciate that relationship is just it's mind-boggling.
It is. I definitely agree with you. I think the relationships have to be more solid, and it's been like that for years. But like I said, for a lot of reasons, they have taken their eye out from Mexico for too long, and yeah, now they've been investing because they understand that Mexico can be a great consumer as well, and on both sides of the border. So, there are people here in this community that work very hard to keep those relationships, economic relationships, growing because it benefits everybody.
Well, we've looked back, some of the good, some of the bad, and definitely you and I both stand firmly side by side when it comes to our failed relationship with Mexico, and it's not all bad. We know that,
No.
but let's move forward. What you and I discussed this a little bit before we began recording the podcast, but go over with me again your concerns about Donald Trump's appointees, and we don't have to. If you haven't watched the news too closely, I'm not going to ambush or embarrass you, but if you have any specific appointees that you'd like to discuss, for good or bad, that's fine. But then specifically, I want to get into talking about potential accusations of nepotism and conflict of interest. But again, we'll start with the first question though. Are there any appointees that you are particularly happy or sad with?
I don't want to give anybody by name, but yeah, there are some that I am concerned about. Some of the people that have been connected to the
Well, like Jeff Sessions, Jeff Sessions of Alabama as Attorney General.
Yeah.
They began his hearings yesterday. Do you have concerns about potential
yes, I
racism?
Do, obviously, at some point, he was had some congressional hearings. I understand, and that he's some real radical views about human rights and civil rights. And he said that was not him 20 years ago. But lepers can't take their spots off. Once they're there forever.
So what about the next issue of nepotism? Him appointing his brother-in-law as a chief advisor.
Oh, that's a big one. That's a humongous, gigantic issue. Even here in our county government, nepotism is something that we cannot allow. I would think that at that level up there, that should be a completely no, because family members obviously will have a major influence on how that government is run, and I guess basically that also a reason why the nepotism laws are in there, to allow people other than family, immediate family, to hold jobs and not deprive somebody else of it. So, it's a big issue. It's a major issue, and we'll see how that works out.
Well, as we wrap up, I promised that I was going to come back to your age, and when I say that, it's not specifically to talk about how old you are, although you're a very old person. But so what is we know what the future holds, at least for now, for the Obama family. They're going to go on another one of their vacations, for which they are so famous, and we know what the future holds in the short term for Donald Trump. Occupying the Oval Office. So what does the future hold for you, and has the election helped you decide that at all? And this is not something for both of our listeners need to know. This is not something we talked about before we began recording, so I'm not setting you guys up. Sheriff Estrada, what is your political and personal, professional future? When I say personal, I don't mean get into your personal life. I mean your individual professional life is what I should have said. What does it hold in the near future? And has the election, seriously, it's a serious question, because this is a question that elected officials across this country, a decision that they're having to make. And I hear this all the time in the podcasts that I listen to from Slate and from Salon.com. They're serious elected and appointed, and academics even, who are asking themselves a question of whether or not they should get involved in the Trump administration, whether or not it's morally, they will actually ask whether or not it is morally right to participate in a Trump administration or sit back and watch it burn. That aside, has the election affected your decision whether or not to stay in public life?
Obviously, it didn't, because obviously, first of all, I didn't know what the outcome was going to be of this election when I was running. I actually got elected in August of last year, so that didn't have an impact on me at all. My reason for running, obviously, is to continue to provide the best I can for the residents and visitors of Santa Cruz County, and to continue to enhance our relationship with our neighbors across the border, and also, always being at the front line for the less fortunate. Having come from humble beginnings, I understand people's struggle and frustrations, and sometimes they reach out for some hope or somebody to give some guidance or listen to them. And I see myself as being an individual that is there for the people that have those those anxieties and those questions, and are hoping for something better, and then that I can provide a voice for them, for these people that I really can relate to, whether they're coming here legally or illegally. So I think that my purpose is to obviously enforce the law as it is on the books.
Well, in your eloquent description of the job, the responsibility that you hold there in Santa Cruz County, you mentioned visitor, and I wanted to tell you that my family and I plan on visiting Santa Cruz County later on this year, and so I hope to actually finally get to meet you face to face.
Yeah, it'll be nice.
With that, I'm going to wrap up this portion of the Political Beast podcast for Wednesday, January 11th. Just, what is that, 9 days before the Trump takeover of the... 9 days before the takeover of the planet. So, to follow up the rest of this Political Beast redo, we're going to revisit Donald Trump's Florida campaign guru, Mitch Tanner, and wrap up with a talk with our managing editor, Jonathan Deviney. I am Gabe Coker, and this is Sheriff Estrada. Sheriff, thank you as always.
Thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully I was able to contribute some insight from our perspective here along the border.
Thank you again.